What is going on, gangers? Brother Nandi back at your service, and I'm here to dive into a continuing series where we look at fictional characters and what health conditions they may have. If you'd like to stay caught up with this series, please make sure you subscribe to my channel. For part 10 of this series, we are going to dive into a fictional character that people may or may not know, and his name is Thorfinn from Vinland Saga. I decided to use survivor guilt to describe Thorfinn's condition. But first, let's dive into what survivor's guilt actually is. Survivor guilt is basically the feeling of guilt after surviving a traumatic or near-death experience when others were not able to survive that same situation. Survivors often feel responsible for the death or injury even though the individual had no real power or influence in the situation. Let's think back to 2020 during the pandemic. If somebody you closely knew developed COVID and died, you may develop survivor's guilt because you feel like there may have been something that you could have done to save that loved one. But not necessarily though. Let's check out risk factors for survivor guilt. Having previous experiences with trauma, things like child abuse, having mental health issues, having low self-esteem, having lack of social support, or basically having no friends. And lastly, having poor coping skills. Now let's connect this to Thorfinn from Vinland Saga. He had a past experience with trauma. He literally witnessed his dad die in front of his eyes by a man named Askeladd. Though it's not Thorfinn's fault, but he had lack of social support. He was a little boy for crying out loud. Not much friends. His dad was basically his bestie. And I doubt Thorfinn had coping skills at that age. Let's also check out signs and symptoms of survivor guilt. This may include having obsessions about the actual situation that happened, having insomnia, feeling pressure to justify surviving, feeling of helplessness, some flashbacks, feeling unmotivated, and physical symptoms like palpitations or headaches. Let's tie it back to Thorfinn again. Like I said, he witnessed his father dying in front of his own eyes. But what people fail to understand, the guy who killed his father, Askeladd, became a father figure to Thorfinn in a sense as well. And when Askeladd ended up dying, Thorfinn lost it because his life goal was to avenge his father's death. That's why he stayed on Askeladd's team, to eventually avenge his father's killing. But when Askeladd died, Thorfinn literally had no purpose for life. And you could tell the emptiness in his face when that happened. Now for treatments to survivor guilt, support groups would be key. Get people that have like-minded experiences and try to relate with these individuals. This could be considered therapy as well, but you could also do like cognitive behavioral therapy or CBT. And then we also want to stress coping mechanisms. Every individual has their different coping mechanisms, whether it's listening to music, going to the gym and working out, or simply just reading. Doing things you like can really make a difference. As always, if you have any of these conditions, please seek help because at the end of the day, you matter. Fictional characters were used to give a different perspective into the situation. If you appreciate this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. If you haven't already, please check out the previous 9 parts to this series. And if you have a suggestion for part 11, please drop it in the comments. But if nothing else, y'all take it easy.